I'd like to call the regular meeting of February 20th, 2018 to order. We'll have an invocation given by Councilman Marn.
Heavenly Father, we thank Thee for this day. Help us to use good judgment for the business at hand and guide us in wisdom with a continuing sense of truth and fairness for the community we represent.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Julie, please call the roll.
Mr. Marne?
Here.
Mr. Blake?
Here.
Mr. Donovan?
Here.
Mrs. Dowling?
Here.
Mr. Kirschner?
Here.
Mr. Krieger?
Here.
Mr. Landig?
Here.
Council, you have the minutes of the work session of February 6, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
Julie, call the roll.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirschner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
And the minutes of the regular meeting of February 6, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
Julie, please call the roll.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirschner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Public hearings, we have none. New legislation, ordinance number 18-0-017.
An ordinance to authorize advances of funds and revisions to appropriations and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Filipiak?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mrs. Lingenfelter, please.
Thank you, Mr. Filipiak, members of council. We have a pretty standard piece of legislation in front of you. The advances of funds are moving to some of the other funds, particularly the street fund and street lighting fund, in advance of the money that we'll be getting later in the year for the revenues that'll be coming in. The appropriations are explained in the staff memo, and the biggest part of those are because of the payment of the ban, the bond anticipation note, and that was done as we received the money for the bonds.
Motion to suspend?
Second. Julie, call the roll.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirschner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes. Move to approve?
Second.
Julie, call the roll.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirschner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Ordinance 18-0-017 has been approved. Ordinance number 18-0-018.
An ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Valley Freightliner, Inc. for the purchase of a dump truck cab and chassis under the State of Ohio Department of Transportation Cooperative Purchasing Program and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Filipiak?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Schweikert, please.
Thank you. The Public Works Department would like to purchase a single-axle dump truck, what's commonly termed a 2.5-ton dump. The ordinance 18 is the cabin chassis, and 19 is the body. Both of these are being purchased through the two different purchasing programs offered by the state of Ohio. Thank you.
Move to suspend?
Second.
Julie?
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirschner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes. Move to approve?
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirschner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Ordinance number 18-0-018 has been approved. Ordinance number 18-0-019.
An ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Concord Road Equipment Manufacturing, Inc. for the purchase of a dump truck cab and chassis under the State of Ohio Department of Transportation Cooperative Purchasing Program and declaring an emergency.
Move to suspend?
Second.
Julie, call the roll.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirschner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes. Move to approve?
Second.
Julie, please call the roll.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirschner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Ordinance number 18-0-019 has been approved. Ordinance number 18-0-020. Going too fast?
An ordinance authorizing the city manager to award a bid contract to Lake County Landscape and Supply, Inc. for the Pedestrian Safety Program Zone 3A and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Flippia.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Swigger, please.
Thank you, Mr. Flipiak. In the spring and summer of 2017, the city inspected over 19 miles of sidewalk on 1,028 parcels in Zone 3A. Zone 3A is bounded by Bellflower Road, Independence Place condominiums, State Route 2, and State Route 306. 832 parcels were cited during the initial inspection process. After reinspection at the end of October 2017, it was determined that 252 parcels completed repairs and 580 parcels remained to be assessed for repairs in the summer of 2018. Bids for the program were opened on February 2nd, 2018. Bids received for the work for the project ranged from a low bid of approximately $415,000 to a high bid approximately $600,000. Engineer's opinion of probable construction cost was $390,000. The low bid was received from Lake County Landscape and Supply Incorporated of Grand River, Ohio, whose bid was found to be in conformance with all contract requirements. It is therefore recommended that the contract be awarded to Lake County Landscape and Supply Incorporated in the amount of $415,380.70. It's anticipated that the work will begin in May of 2018 with project completion specified for August of this year. Thank you.
Council.
Move to suspend?
Second?
Julie, call the roll.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes. Move to approve.
Second?
Julie, call the roll.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Ordinance number 18-0-020 has been approved. Second reading. Ordinance number 18-0-008.
Ordinance amending the codified ordinances of the City of Mentor 2006 as amended and the official zoning map by rezoning of 19.0917 acres from R4 Single Family Residential District to RVG Village Green District at 7343, 7391, 7399, and 7411 Chillicothe Road.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Blake.
I'd like to move this item to second reading while we await the Planning Commission's review.
I'll third it.
Do we have to call the roll on that, or no? Call the roll.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Ordinance number 18-0-008 is on second reading. Ordinance number 18-0-016.
An ordinance approving a minor subdivision at 7400 and 7414 Hart Street and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Flippia.
Thank you, Mr. President, Council.
Wait, sorry.
Mr. Flipiak, I wanted to let you know that I learned just before the council meeting started that the actual owner of that property is here tonight and apparently wants to clear up what her expectations were for that subdivision, which, when we passed this to tonight, may have been misunderstood from her agent. And so she's here now. I don't know on a procedural basis whether you want to hear from her first before you make the suggestion of the amendment that you were thinking of, or go forward with that. But she's here, and apparently she and the agent weren't entirely on the same page about the future of the building, the structure that's at the property.
Mr. President.
I think we might as well go ahead and hear from the property owner first, and then continue on with the administration and council.
Sounds good.
So the owner is here, and you want to step to the podium, state your name and address.
Hi, thank you for your time. I'm a terrible public speaker.
It's all right.
My name's Brandy Stacy, and I currently live at 38537 Atkins Road. Well,
Take your time. It's okay.
no idea what is going on. I wanted to split the two properties and add property onto the existing home at 7400 Hart Street. 7414 is the lot, which I had to tear the house down this past summer. So apparently I'm going to need some more space because I don't think Mr. Sean Faglione and I are going to follow through with the 7400 house. I'm not sure what we're doing with the property right now. I would like to put a different design in. I understand I need a garage and a driveway. And I'd like to attach it to the side of the house as opposed to the back. But it would only leave me 7 feet from the property line. So I don't know if I have room to do that.
Brandy, would you like us to table this for now, and then you can get together with the administration and work out the details as you see them? Is that okay? Okay.
I'd move the table.
Yep, second. Okay. Julie, call the roll?
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr.
We'll
Blake?
talk before you leave.
I want you to sit
Yeah,
down.
okay.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Ordinance 18-0-016 has been tabled. Third reading, we have none. Manager's report, Mr. Filipiak.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of council. Council, we have one pavement open cut request from professional engineering consultants for work to be performed related to a sanitary sewer service for a new construction at 7207 Hopkins Road, and we recommend approval.
Move to approve.
Second. Julie?
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Thank you. In other news, during the past 2 weeks, the police department's crime prevention officers have been conducting a seatbelt and airbag safety program to all third grade classes in the city. All third grade students are then eligible to enter the seatbelt safety poster contest. Winners from each school and the top 3 overall winners are recognized and awarded prizes at the annual Hero Day held in May at the Great Lakes Mall. So good luck to all our third graders. Mentor officers will be restarting the retail theft program at the beginning of March, which has been very successful for us over the last 2 years. The program focuses on reducing retail theft throughout the city and also involves educating store employees, particularly loss prevention agents, to make them more effective. This has also resulted in a much closer proactive working relationship between the stores and the police department, which I think has paid dividends in other areas. In 2017, this program resulted in 76 arrests with over $11,000 recovered in property that had been stolen. The City Fire Department has partnered with the Mentor Public Library for the new Firehouse Friends program, a monthly program that we'll be conducting where firefighters read to the children to share safety lessons, but it also affords the parents an opportunity to learn more about what services we provide in the fire service. First session was held on February 15th at the main branch, and there was really overwhelming turnout for that, more than I think we anticipated. And the next session is scheduled for March 15th. Everyone is welcome, no age requirements related to that. Marigold Road construction contractor JTO has completed 52 of the 130 sanitary lateral replacements. Work on that will continue as the sanitary laterals between Garden and Maiden are next on the list. Second crew is expected to begin working this week on a storm lateral replacement between Woodbridge and Garden Street. The Menor Avenue widening contractor has finished installation of foundations for traffic signal poles. The poles have been ordered, and then the city is waiting on an update on the expected delivery date. Signal contractor is currently working on installation of underground signal conduit. Coordination with the utility relocation continues as well. And you may have also seen that some of the poles for our decorative down Old Village project, Phase 1, are also going up at this time. Two-Town detention contractor has temporarily suspended hauling activities due to warmer weather. and rain causing really severe muddy conditions on Jeremy Street, State Route 306, and Heisley Road. The contractor has made really quite a strong effort to combat the issue, including redressing the stone construction drives on a regular basis, along with full-time street sweeping and taking a water truck out there. But really, it's just about the worst condition. So they've halted the work. I don't want to say indefinitely, but Mr. Swigger and his department are working closely to try to figure out a schedule that can be managed with this. Obviously, this is about the worst conditions we would have, in 70-degree weather, and an inch of rain today hasn't helped matters, so we'll keep you updated on that as well. On this Saturday, February 24th, the Mentor City Arena will be featured on the Channel 3 morning show. The staff will be discussing Olympic Day and giving skating demonstrations of all types. We've had a big response to this, so stay tuned for that, and we should have a nice program this Saturday to offer up. And then finally, we have one new business that we'd like to welcome to our community, Integrity Staffing Services at 8518 Mentor Avenue, and we wish them well and best of luck for their future success here in Mentor. That's all.
Thank you, thank you. Julie, clerk's correspondence?
Council is in receipt of the Mentor Municipal Court month-end report for January 2018.
Commission and committee reports. You have in your pack meeting minutes for Board of Building and Zoning Appeals, December 12, 2017, and January 16, 2018. The Community Arts Commission, November 2nd, 2017, and January 4th, 2018. And the Municipal Planning Commission, January 18, 2018. Old business.
Mr. President.
Mr. Donovan.
Ken, I was wondering, I was at Garfield Park this weekend, and the wall's holding up great, and there seems to be a lot of getting rid of a lot of the stuff down the creek, the brush and the trees and all that, and all the fencing came down throughout the whole park. We're planning on, are we going to reinstall fencing all through the park again in all the locations that it was removed, which I don't personally think is necessary, but.
I'm sorry, Councilman.
Garfield Park.
Right, are you referring to the temporary fencing that we put in place?
The fencing that was all the way down the road through the park, along
Oh.
the baseball fields.
The split rail permanent
split-
fencing?
yeah, the split rail.
I believe we are,
Okay.
yes.
And I just wondered, I noticed that the wall's holding up and the new clay and all that. Is there any update on when we could remove all those concrete barriers and all that kind of, that's farther, like 30 feet down from the edge of the lake? Do you know when all that's going to be coming out of there? There's some concrete barrier, you know what I mean, Dave?
Yeah, the concrete that we put in, we were hoping to reestablish the grass.
Okay.
Maybe before removing the concrete barriers.
Okay.
So that'll be springtime.
All right, I appreciate it.
Anybody else? New business.
Mr. President,
Mr. Kurtz.
question for the administration. The street lighting is assessed based on valuation, correct? And it's in perpetuity, I presume, right, as long as you have street lights? Is that-
Well, council adopts an ordinance annually
Right,
to,
right.
but yes.
So have we ever gotten a request from, say, an older subdivision like mine that wanted to have an upgrade? For instance, in my subdivision, we have a mix of different lights, light poles, light like period and more contemporary light tops, and as well as bulbs that are different, aspects as far. Have we ever have a request like that? If not, I'd like to make one.
We've had requests in the past for street sections that are unlighted. I'm not familiar with the request to change the style of lighting. Are you, Mr. Schweikert?
This is 40 years old.
Sure. I will say this, I included this in my report to council last Friday, but, Mr. Kirchner, you were in attendance to that for the benefit of the rest of council, as was Councilman Landig. We had a meeting with one of the First Energy's regional representative, and Mr. Schweikert joined the meeting as well, and we talked about, among other topics, we talked about the potential for changing over to LED lighting throughout the city. Now, that's a long process and an ambitious one because really no one has done it in any large scale. There have been a couple of very small projects in Northeast Ohio, but we're talking about getting out in front as a community on that because there's a significant long-term savings. That would mean changing out fixtures. So that might be a good opportunity to look at something like that at that time. And my guess is that we would probably start with some smaller areas, maybe have a test area, waiting for some information back on First Energy. Among our most important is they currently have a contract affiliation with General Electric that provides all their fixtures. We've asked them to consider whether or not they could use an alternative supplier. In particular, we're thinking about iLighting if they had a product that would be satisfactory. So we're waiting to get word back, and I think it'll take a little time on that. But after that, and once that question is resolved, I think we'd like to move forward with some test areas in the city, and Brainerd Court is making
Well,
itself.
I don't want to be selfish. I mean, there's 150
Well,
other homes in the subdivision, you know.
But I think that would be a good opportunity to maybe attend to a request like that. Now, style-wise, some of the Cobra heads would be completely replaced. So we could look at it
Well,
then.
thank you.
Mr. Landy?
Well, as a follow-up to this question for the city manager, if a neighborhood did then go to LED lighting on the annual assessment, would their rates be reflected accordingly, or?
No, it's a good question, but I mean, really cumulatively, we look at our cost to provide light service on in totality, and then we divide that up by all of those who are benefiting properties. So much like, one might have a more narrow street versus a concrete or an asphalt street, we look at all of them being served, period. So I don't think that we would make a distinction. Although, when we get to the point where the capital cost is recovered from the new light installation, everyone will benefit from that.
Okay. Thank you.
But again, we have, probably close to 20,000 structures in this community. So it's a long period of implementation, and First Energy in Northeast Ohio has not done any community of this scale, of any scale, really.
I have just one item, I guess, primarily for Chief Knight to be aware of. I found out today that I guess Memorial, as one school, apparently at 2:05 tomorrow, is going to have a little demonstration against gun violence outside the front of the school, I guess. So I don't know if they've coordinated that with you or any.
Contact with us, high school students.
Okay, all right, thank you. Anything else for our new business? Persons before council. Lane Foster.
Good evening, Mr. President and City Council. You know why I'm here, but I'd like to start by saying I sent out, I'm going to try to be really polite tonight, sent out an email to Natural Resource Supervisor and made CCs and over CCs to many people within the City Council and city officials, police department. But I got one response, and I wanted to commend you for responding to my email, Mr. Landy. I was always taught that if you received correspondence from someone, whether they agree with you or not, it was polite to respond to correspondence, and I never got one response except for Mr. Landy. I understand that my position on the deer management program in this city is not conducive to what most of you believe, but it's my belief anyway. And I've paid taxes in this city for over 30 years. So I will continue to have a voice in this city, whether you respond to my voice or not. I read with interest the officials reflect on the deer management program, and the city manager has many quotes in here. Culling is being done in my backyard tonight. And I went into my backyard and I heard those muffled gunshots that they tell you that you're going to hear. And my heart broke. And it will continue to break. In this article that the News Herald provided, it says that the deer deterror signs have been a success, but I don't see very many of them in the city. The culling program continues, the bow and hunting continues, the rifles continue. There are those among us, although there aren't very many loud voices like mine, or thorn in the side, like I am for most of you. But there are people like me who feel very strongly about the deer program in the city of Mentor. In fact, a few years back, I got signatures from many people who did not want you guys to buy the property in back of our homes. And as I told council, I knew as soon as you guys bought the property that you would allow the culling and the hunting on the property. And sure enough, didn't take long. I think it took maybe a year, maybe not even, for the culling to start in our backyard. I'm here tonight just to express my dismay at the way people that have a difference of opinion. It's all pretty in the city when people agree with you, but when they don't, we're not treated that well. Disrespected, arrested, what have you. I would like to see that changed. I would like to see the program changed. You've looked at it, you've seen that it's a success. There's a quote in here from the city manager that we've reached maintenance stage for the deer population in the city of Mentor. I hope that's the case. And I hope that in the future, you might consider that if you emailed one of your residents in the city and wanted a response from them, I'm sure they sure as shooting better respond back to you guys. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Filipiak, question. Next year for the program, aren't we thinking about cutting out the culling altogether and just relying on the bow hunters?
We have not made that decision.
Okay, but we're saying, I know it was a discussion we're having. Okay.
I think, again, we take a look at all the data that's gathered to try to make some general estimate of population, as we have done every year. And as council is aware, we have the number of permits that was issued was reduced from about 150 or so in 2016 or 2017 to just 60 this year, reflecting the changes in the maintenance level. But I think if it would please me to be able to do that, to reduce reduce or further or eliminate the culling activities. But we're not going to make that decision based on anything other than the population levels and trying to maintain our original goals of the program. So controlling that, if we could control the population by bow hunting alone, that would certainly be an economic benefit to the city going forward. But I don't think we're in a position to say that just yet. It would certainly be a goal.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have executive?
Oh, yeah, no,
No.
we changed it.
Second.
Let me go talk to